Good afternoon, my name's Malie, and today we're on to the third and possibly final installation of my landscape design series. And today we're going to cover how to install the drip irrigation. We're going to plant some plants, and maybe we'll get to the point where I've installed all of the mulch that I had delivered. We might even be able to see my final installation. So let's sit back, enjoy yourself, and let's get started. So it's been a few days since I last filmed. We've had a bit of progress. Not enough to do the planting and the irrigation that I'd wanted, but our pile has been reduced greatly. I tried it for a while, couldn't do it, and then I got lucky and had a son and some neighbor kids come over and help. So we're just about done with this. Let me show you what I'm doing with my irrigation hose. As you can see, I've got it strung out long ways. It's all the way over to the neighbors, all the way through my yard. And the reason I'm doing this is when this irrigation hose is cold, it's very rigid and hard to work with. So I'm letting it relax in the sun so that it will lie straight in this new garden. One other thing that I want you to notice is how mounded this is. I wanted to create kind of a mound between me and the neighbors. Makes a nice barrier. Not that I want a barrier for my neighbors, I love my neighbors, but it really makes a good visual barrier. So the first thing that we have here is the drip tubing that we've used. Some people call it netafin, but it's just basically drip tube. And as you can see, there are holes in different spacing around it. This one is about 18 inches. There's some that are 12 inches. They have it at different spacing. But it has a pressure regulator inside it. It works really nicely. We also have solid tubing that does not have drip to connect some of the areas together where we don't want drip tubing. We have my drip tube cutter. And we have water. This I learned from my sister. If it's a colder day and the drip tube and the fittings are not going into the drip tube very well because the drip tube is, rigid, then you can stick the end of your drip tube into some really hot water, not boiling, just really hot water, and that will help the fittings go on easier. Hot sun also works. We have my really long staples. These long staples are very necessary to help tack down the drip tube. We have a cross connector, corner connectors, Tconnectors, of which I do not have enough. I need to go get one more before I can get everything to work. And then we have the straight connectors. Now I'm going to need to hurry a little bit. It is starting to rain. But I have started to put in my drip irrigation. I showed you how I capped off all of the sprinkler heads. They are now buried. I laid out the plants in kind of the way and made a decision on how I wanted this area to look. Over here, we're going to have a pathway eventually. I need to do this in stages as I can afford it, and as I have energy and time. But this will be a pathway, so there's not going to be drip irrigation in that area. This area through here is going to remain pretty empty, because we do pile snow through here and we exit the truck out through this area. We have our downspout. This is going to be lower than grade. I wanted to surround it by rocks because I did not want to cover it with dirt. Covering it with dirt would make it so that it just would not work very well. It can be covered with mulch though, so this will probably be covered with mulch. And the rocks are going to make it so that when the water comes gushing out, we're not going to get runoff onto the driveway. Up here you can see where I installed our drip converter. This used to be a spray head, and in the last video I showed you how we screwed that just onto where the spray head was screwed onto, and now this is a drip system. I've got to connect that side, and I'm going to show you how I will do this, but I have connected the other side already. And I've done some other connections, but I wanted to show you how we do that and what parts we use. First connection I'm going to show you is the corner connector. So we have the corner connector right here, and it's really easy. These tubes are really warm right now, so you just slip them in, Rock them back and forth if you need to. Make sure they go all the way in past these lines. And make sure there's no dirt in the system. So there we have one of the corners connected. The next connection we're going to show you is the Tconnector, and that's for when you have 3 lines that you want to hook together. So you just take the first line, slide it in up past the lines, and the second one, making sure there is no dirt inside the line. And then the third. So that is all connected now. The 4-way connector I've already hooked together, but it is just basically that. It's for an area where you have 4 pipes that you need to connect. One other troubleshooting thing I wanted to show you is when you have pipe that's been coiled up, sometimes you'll get kinks like this. And this is going to restrict the flow of water. Now, what I've tried to do is pop that kink out. It's worked all the way down the rest of the line. But this area just continually kinks. So I'm going to show you how I fix that. Now what I do to fix this is I get my tubing cutters. I cut the tube right along the area where it's kinking. So now we have that cut. We have a straight connector. Slide that in both sides. Tack it down, and that issue is solved. Now we just about had a tragedy. I forgot that I had connected the other side of the conversion kit, but luckily I had this trench contained the flow of water. Then I went back and connected it. And as you can see, the drip tube is working beautifully. Now for a drip system like this, depending on the plants that I have, I will be running it probably, I'd say once everything's established, I'll run it 2 times a week at an hour to an hour and a half. Now, because these plants are new, I may end up running this every other day for the first little while. But I'm going to hand water them in after I plant them. Get this lovely layer of mulch down on top, and that should help conserve the moisture. So on to the fun part. Now we're going to do the planting. So the first thing that I'm going to plant are the easy ones. These are 2 of my leftover ground cherries. These are going to get put into the ground, and hopefully they'll do okay. They are pretty pot bound right now, but they're going to have some good mulch over the top and some good water, so these should do fine. They'll get about 3 feet tall, maybe 2 feet wide. These are also annuals, so they are just place fillers right now. I did have a chase tree I was going to put in this area, but the place that sent it to me sent it completely root bound, and it actually died before I even had a chance to plant it. So I'm going to get a replacement for that, but in the meantime, I'm going to put these in. Yep, they're pretty root bound. They've been in the pots for so long, but I'll just mess up these roots just a little bit. And I'm going to put these right where the dripper is dripping, because these do take quite a bit of water. Now I'm going to put some mulch over these right away because they are quite tender, and I want to be able to try and keep the roots as cool as possible. And yes, this is a snow shovel. It's one of the better ways to move mulch and soil. So it's been a few more days since the last video, and we have finished the planting, finished spreading the mulch, and I wanted to show you the final product of what we've accomplished. First thing you'll notice is a huge pile of irises. It's all my irises finished blooming, and several of them were so crowded that they did not bloom, so I've dug most of them out. This pile's been spoken for by a lady who's going to come take them. And then I replanted a couple here, several different places around my yard, and I'm going to show you a video later this week about how to replant irises. So in this area, we have my new little wee ones, lavender. We have a brand new plant that I'm really excited about. This is a hardy hibiscus. And I can't remember the name, but it has light pink flowers. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. Behind that, we have my black-eyed Susans. Over here, we planted my switchgrass and the Glow Girl spirea. We've spread all the mulch. I'm glad we had a rainstorm so that I could see what needs to be done. But we had that little drain. I had it covered by the mulch. And it's still, even though I put rock around it, it's still eroded through all the new topsoil. So I'm going to need to put just a tiny little dry stream bed of rock right through there so that the water can drain out. But at least now I know where the water is going to drain. We've got our elderberries. This is a hydrangea paniculata. I cannot remember the variety that I planted here either, but I'll see if I can research these, the hardy hibiscus and the hydrangea that I got, and let you know the varieties. I'm really excited about it. This one should get about 5 feet tall and wide. I've got the tiny little pistachio tree that seems to be doing okay. Figs still doing good. The little figs are getting bigger. We've got our laced up elderberry that's blending in with the mulch that should show up beautifully against the white fence. And our chokeberry. All in all, I'm really happy how my landscape turned out. We've got more plants that we're going to add at a later date, and landscapes are always evolving. So if you have an area in your yard that's bothering you, get excited. Go out and figure out what you can do different, and have a wonderful garden adventure.